Hi, today I'll be discussing cutting the cord. If you're not familiar with that term, it refers to lower cost options than having cable in your home for television and other entertainment. We're going to go over the technical requirements, the kind of subscriptions you'd need, and what's involved in setting it up. We'll also talk about pluses and minuses and costs involved with that. If you'd like to follow along, we do have the materials on the website. As you can see on the screen over my shoulder here, you go to the library's website, Programs, Computer Classes, and then scroll down until you see the Cutting the Cord class listed there. I know it doesn't show up very well in the recording, but it is up there on the screen. Follow along with that if you'd like. Also, if you have any other questions about this or any topic, we are doing Zoom rent-a-tech appointments. So feel free to contact me about that at 630-924-2766, and we can discuss things either over the phone or over a video conference. Now let's go ahead and get started. So, quick overview of what we're going to have to talk about today. First of all, the technical requirements. Those are the physical things that you need in your home to be able to cut the cord and go with internet-based streaming services for your television entertainment. Second, we'll go over what services are available, the benefits for them, downsides, and what different kinds of things you might want to consider when putting this into place. So let's get started with the technical requirements. First of all, you're going to need a high-speed internet connection, preferably Wi-Fi. Technically, you are not required to have a Wi-Fi connection, but the vast majority of systems work that way. It's simpler to set up, requires less cabling, less location specific, and more of the devices that you would buy will have that. Second of all, you're going to need a smart TV with preferably an HDMI port. If you look at the side of your TV, you'll see a number of ports there. If you purchased your TV anytime in the last 10 years, it's very likely that you have an HDMI port. But if you have an older set, then that might be an issue. So this is something to look into before you consider what you would want to get rid of. Most modern cable modems will already be connecting through HDMI, so you probably have that plugged in already. To circle back to the internet requirements, I'm very often asked, what kind of speeds are required, what would I need? Typically, it's recommended you have at least 25 megabits per second download speed. Most home services in the area will have that without question. It's worth taking a look at your cable bill or calling them up to ask if you want to make sure, but that is definitely something you can check out. If this is something that you're unsure of, the threshold for testing out this system and seeing if it would work in your home with your internet speeds is not that high, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we get into the equipment. Second thing that we're asked here and that we discuss, are there any additional costs? If you are concerned about adding this to your internet requirements and you want to know, is this going to increase the amount that I have to pay on a monthly basis, generally speaking, the answer is no. Most home internet services do not have a data cap, by which I mean a limit to the amount that you are allowed to enter in. Some of them will have that, but that is very rare and is typically more common with cell phone plans than it is with home data plans. So not something you need to worry too much about. So that's all that you would need to physically have there. To recap it, you need internet service in your home, preferably Wi-Fi, and you need to have a television with an HDMI port. There are workarounds to both of those, but that's what you're going to use most of the time. Now, let's talk about the benefits of it. So if you're considering cutting the cord, or if you just want to learn more about it, you might wonder, why would I do this? What are the benefits to removing my cable internet service and going with the streaming services instead? We'll get into how you would do that in just a moment. But why would you do that? Number one reason that people do this is money. They say the average amount saved per month is somewhere in the range of about $70. This, of course, depends on what services you choose to add. But almost all customers will be paying less going with the a la carte programs that I'm going to describe in a moment, rather than the blanket payment that they make to their cable company. So you will save some money there in most circumstances. Another reason you would do this is choice in entertainment. There are a number of cable packages available from most providers, but they are still grouping together the channels that they give you and putting them in packages available to you based on sales or other options that are there. When you go with streaming services, you have a lot more individual control over what you're paying for. Another reason you might want to do this is contract flexibility. Very often we've had this experience when you call up a cable company and you set up a plan, you're roped into a 1 or 2 or 3 year contract to secure the lower rates. With all the services that we're going to describe, they are things that you would pay month to month and stop paying whenever you were so inclined. So that gives you a lot of flexibility of trying something out, deciding you don't much care for it, and not being committed to a long-term expense. And finally, there's a lot of exclusive content. A number of the services that I'm going to describe to you and that we're going to go over are going to have content that is not available through the cable companies or anywhere else. Because of this, a lot of cable companies are starting to package some of these streaming services along with them, but that does also come with an extra expense. So, we talked about the reasons that you might consider doing this. What are the downsides? Number one downside, and the number one reason that I think a lot of people avoid going with cutting the cord, is the increased complexity. Right now, if you're comfortable with your cable service and you're familiar with just using the one remote to get everything started and getting it going, it might be a transition for you to go over to working with some of the streaming options that are available. You'd have to learn how to use the different apps and how to get to the channels or the tools that they have there. This doesn't need to be a deal breaker. This is something that you can definitely overcome, but I want you to go in with your eyes open and be aware of it. Another downside, DVR options exist, but they are a little bit less intuitive than they are built in with the cable. This is similar to the first one, that it's more complex working with the streaming services. A lot of times the DVR is not necessary with the streaming services because once something is released, it's available forever, anytime you want to click over to it. But that is something that is different from the system you may or may not be used to, so something to be aware of there. Another issue that some people have is that your connection can be subject to internet speeds and traffic restrictions, so if you do live somewhere where you have a slow internet speed, that can be a problem. This is something that if you have, say, a vacation home somewhere more remote, or just live in an unincorporated area that doesn't have as high speeds available, this might run into being an issue for you. Most people, however, in the Chicago suburbs will have no problems with this. And one last thing that's worth mentioning, the streaming services, similar to television and everything else, but this is something we're more aware of with the streaming services, are subject to changing licenses for media products. What does that mean? Well, you might sign up for Hulu one day because you heard that they have all the Seinfeld episodes on it or some other product that you like, and then 6 months later, the Seinfeld licenses might be bought out by Netflix or some other service there. So, because you don't own any of the content, it's not like owning a DVD, you don't have a physical thing in your home, what's available to watch can change from month to month. So now that we've gone over that, let's talk about how you would go about setting up streaming services in your home. First of all, let's talk about the different options that you have. Once you are connected to, let me rephrase, when you want to stream something, you need a way to connect to your television to the internet. All of the things that we're going to discuss are going to be services that are streamed, which means continually pulled from the internet onto your TV. These are not going to be things that are downloaded or saved to your TV or to any device. So you need a way to get that television connected online. Some televisions have their own internet connection. If you have a smart TV that allows you to set up network connections on it and add apps, you might not need any of the devices we're about to discuss. That being said, some people aren't crazy about how the smart TV input works, and so they might decide that they want to add one of these devices anyway because the cost of them is relatively low. That is entirely up to you and how you like to work with it. But most TVs made in the last 5 years or so, or more expensive ones made earlier than that, will already have a built-in Wi-Fi connection that you can set it up so that it will connect to your wireless network and be able to work with most of these applications. Now, if you don't have that, or if you just choose to use one of these streaming options that are available, you might want to purchase what are typically referred to as HDMI dongles. These would be things like the Roku, the Amazon Fire Stick, the Chromecast, or Apple TV. These are all ways to connect your television to a Wi-Fi network. If you happen to have the plugs nearby, or you want to make sure that you have a particularly fast connection, there are some devices that you can plug your data line directly into instead of using Wi-Fi. Roku 3 box is one example of that. So those will allow you to connect directly. Most of them would simply be sticks that you would plug into the HDMI cable. They're about the size of your thumb, or maybe a little bit larger than that, and they'll plug into the HDMI plug on the side or the back of your television. Once you have that connected, then you are able to go to that input the same way that you would change the input if you're trying to get to a VCR or a DVD player. You would change the input to that HDMI plug, and you would be able to set up your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick or Chromecast or whatever it is you're using. For the purpose of the rest of this class, I'm going to just use the term Roku as a catch-all for those dongles that we would add on, but any of them will work the same way and will have the same options that we're discussing here. There'll be small differences in the tools that are available. For example, Amazon Fire Stick works very well with the Amazon services. Google Cast device works very well with Chromecast, but for the most part, they all work more or less the same. So I'm just going to use the generic term Roku, which is one of the companies that's there, to describe it all for the rest of the class. Now, once you have your Roku device plugged in, you can go to the menu system for that, and you can choose to add apps. This is very similar to adding apps to your phone, but it involves a little bit less time because you don't have to actually download anything to the stick. What you are doing is you are setting up an account, kind of like setting up an email account, where you have a space reserved on the internet to identify what you have associated with your Roku device. So you will have to have an email address, and there will be a little bit of back and forth between the computer and the device when you're first setting these things up, giving you confirmation code saying, yes, I want to add this, that sort of thing. The main crux of this is you go through and you choose what services you want to add on. This is where you would add famous things like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, HBO, other tools like that that you want to be able to get to their services. It costs nothing to add these to your Roku account. What you have to pay for is the monthly fee for accessing the channels themselves. So if you add the HBO app, that doesn't cost you anything. But when you try to use it, you need to sign up for HBO, and that will cost you $15 a month, or whatever they're charging right now. So that is how the process works. You go through, you select what you want, you add it to your device, and once you have that, you choose whether to create or kill the subscriptions. When you create the subscriptions, you will have to register a credit card and other billing information, same as if you were signing up for a monthly delivery of anything, because you are choosing to pay for a service. The majority of these have a free 1 week or 2 week trial, so you can see if you like them. This is particularly useful for some of the more expensive ones that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. So that is how you would deal with and add the services onto your screen. Now let's talk about what you might actually want to add and the positives and negatives and what considerations there are for those. So here are your options. The first one we're going to talk about are services that you would use to replace cable TV. These are things that you would use if you wanted to be able to watch live television, if you wanted to get a large range of channels together, those kinds of options. None of these will have as many channels as a standard cable package, but they will also cost considerably less. There are a lot of different services out there that do this. I'm going to mention a few of the more popular ones. Sling TV is very popular, DirecTV Now is increasing in popularity, and YouTube TV and Hulu Live are some of the higher end options that are available. The prices in these range anywhere from $20-something to $50-ish per month, with YouTube TV and Hulu Live being the more expensive of those packages. These will come with a wide range of channels. You can look up channel comparisons on the screen. I'd pull that up on the screen here, but it's getting a lot of glare, so I don't think you'd be able to read it very well. But you can look through the different channels that are available. What I always recommend to people is you sit down with anybody in your household that has a vote in this, and you discuss what channels you would like to have and what channels you absolutely have to have for being able to watch the shows that you would like. And once you have those lists, you can go over and look through the list of channels available and see what best matches your service. Other things these will provide, the key thing is that they allow you to watch live TV. So if you have any sporting events or news or anything like that that is time sensitive, you'd be able to watch it right then and there. However, they also provide other services like DVR. So if you wanted to record live events and be able to come back and watch them, say you're busy until 9 o'clock, but something was happening at 7 o'clock and you want to watch it right away, you can do that. And they will allow you to do that and to watch it when you get back. Now, the downside of these, of course, is that they cost rather a lot. I should specify, by the way, that the DVR is in the cloud, so there's no physical device in your home required for that. There are some physical DVRs that you can purchase and you can connect to streaming services. The TiVo is a famous one. There are others out there that you might consider. These are, for one, they require a fairly big upfront expense, a couple $100s, and it increases the complexity of the setup. So I wouldn't recommend that right at the start. But if you get interested in this, you can do a little bit more, and then you would actually have possession of the material and you have it stored there. The online DVRs that they offer for you, those will work with two different kinds of restrictions. Most of the services allow a certain amount of time, 50 to 200 hours, depending on what you're paying and what is available there, that you can have recorded, and you can choose to delete what you don't want and add new things whenever you're so inclined. One of them, YouTube TV, allows you to record unlimited things, so you can have as much time as you want recorded, but as soon as you watch something, it's removed from the DVR. So if you had a favorite show that you wanted to go back and watch repeatedly, you would not be able to do that, but you have no caps on what you have stored, so you can set it to record everything that you like that might be coming through. Something to be aware of there. So, lots of different services for that. My recommendation, if you want something to replace live TV, so you wanted to be able to watch something as it was happening, you can look into those options. Different ones focus on different things. If you watch a lot of sports, Fubo, that's Fubo TV, is a sports-centric one that has a lot of channels for that. Sling TV is a fairly basic channel package. Hulu has a lot of NBC products and things along those lines. YouTube TV has a very wide range of channels, but you do pay for it. It's a little bit higher priced. So take a look at the ones that are available out there, consider what works best for you, and go with that. Now, if you want to forego that, you are not required to have anything that shows you live TV, because most of the options that we're going to talk about will show you things a couple of days later, a few days after they air, that you can pick up later on, and you can save a lot of money there. But just something to consider while you're looking through them. So, in addition to these services to replace cable TV, we have a lot of the specialty entertainment options. These are things like Netflix, Amazon Prime, basic YouTube, HBO Go, Showtime. All of these offer their own apps that you can download onto your device and use to view this. I also, by the way, in the handout, which you'll see if you go to the website, list Hulu in specialty entertainment options. It's a little bit confusing that that is in two different categories. The reason for that is you can pay the higher end bill for Hulu, where you are getting the live TV and the DVR choices, or you can pay considerably less, roughly $5.99 a month instead of $50 a month, to not have the live TV, but to have access to most of their content a few days after it comes out. So if you're happy with that, there's good savings options available for you there. A lot of these have, in addition to content that they have from other channels, I mentioned earlier examples like having old episodes of Seinfeld or other shows that you can look up and watch there. They have a lot of their own original content that was created on their stations and it's only available there. So Netflix has a number of shows and movies that it has paid for and it shows only on Netflix. Same thing with Amazon Prime, Hulu. Obviously HBO has been making their own content for a long time now. So there are a lot of things that are available on these channels and nowhere else. So that's something to consider when you're looking into what you want to have. Now, of course, the more of these things you add on, the more you're spending per month, and that can add up. So you would have to use some judgment as to what you wanted to keep and what you wanted to let go if your goal was to save money for this. I remind you, though, that we can get rid of these at any time. And very often people, when they first start using this streaming systems, they will add a lot of apps and they just realize, you know what, we haven't clicked on that one for a couple of weeks. We're not using that very much. We can remove that and stop paying the bill. And so keep that in mind, that you can always cancel something if it's something you're not interested in. So those are your specialty entertainment options. There are a lot more out there. Whether you use the Roku or any of the other sticks, you can browse through all the apps that are available. They have BritBox if you like British TV and classic shows from there. They have services that you can get through the library for free that you might want to consider using your library card to be able to watch things. A lot of options that are available. So, by all means, browse around, pick and choose. There are a number of free services or ones that have some content for free and others that you would pay for. So explore, have fun with it. There's a lot of choices there. Finally, I mentioned some other smart TV apps. Google Photos, Pandora, AccuWeather, CNBC, Skype, endless others. A lot of things that you can use once you have this device in place. Because once you have connected your television to the internet, then you are ready to go and ready to use a lot of the things that are available there. So be aware that if you wanted to connect to music playing systems like Pandora or Spotify, you can do that through your smart TV. So you can just have background music playing when you're not viewing the TV. If you wanted to be able to connect to photo streaming services, places where you store your content online, Amazon Prime has tools for that, Google has tools for that. There are a lot of things that you can use once you have this device in place, because you have all of the tools available on the internet. So something to work on and keep available there. Finally, I talk a little bit about casting. So if you have something on your laptop or on your phone that you want to be able to watch on your TV, whether it's a video on Facebook that you'd like to show a lot of people, a sporting event that is streaming on the school or organization's website but isn't available on any TV channels. There are tools that you can use to cast to any of those devices that we talked about earlier: Chromecast, Miracast, Apple TV, Roku. They all have means to cast something from your phone or your laptop onto the television, as long as they're in the same wireless network. So when you have them both set up to connect to your home wireless network, you can do that. As I said, this is something that is a bit of a niche skill. It's not something that everybody would want to do, but we've had patrons in the past ask about watching their relative's college sporting event that is viewable on their website, and they don't want to huddle around a computer to do that. You can now cast that to your TV as long as you have one of these devices plugged in. So something to consider, and one of the other pluses that is available when you go with this option as opposed to just basic cable. With that, I'm going to mention a couple of resources that you might want to consider. There's a website, cutcabletoday.com. This is in the handout as well, so if you don't like guessing at the spelling, or you don't want to have to type in the whole URL, if you open up the PDF that we have on the website, you can click to that link. Cutcabletoday.com will have some resources about channel guide comparisons and devices you might want to consider. And the RokuGuide.com/channels/apps will have a lot of information about what apps are available and what you might want to consider adding on to yours. So if you want to have the daily wake-up information, or you want to have a weather report appear on your TV when you first turn it on, all kinds of little gadgets you can do and things that you can use for that. I hope you found this helpful. Again, if you have any questions about cutting the cord or you'd like to discuss it further, feel free to give me a call at 630-924-2766. We're here at the library to help you during this time and to answer any questions you have as best we can, so please give me a call, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye.